Part 1. The Unexpected Awakening. The soft hiss of decompressing air pulled Dr. Marcus Vale from the depths of cryosleep. His eyelids felt heavy, weighted down by months of induced hibernation. The familiar ache in his joints told him the process was complete, but something felt different this time. The research station's ambient lighting was dimmer than usual, casting long shadows across the medical bay. Marcus stretched slowly, his muscles protesting after the extended sleep cycle. The Kepler research station had been his home for 3 years now, studying the unique plant life of this distant world. The isolation suited him perfectly. After the controversy surrounding his work on Earth, this remote assignment felt like salvation rather than exile. He swung his legs over the edge of the cryopod, bare feet touching the cold metal floor. The station's environmental systems hummed quietly around him, maintaining the perfect balance of temperature and atmosphere that kept him alive on this alien world. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the purple-tinged sky of Kepler 442b, dotted with its 3 small moons. Something moved in his peripheral vision. Marcus turned his head sharply, fully alert now. There, curled up on the floor near his personal quarters, was a figure he had never seen before. His breath caught in his throat as he took in the impossible sight before him. She appeared to be sleeping, but she was definitely not human. Her skin had a subtle luminescence, pale blue with silver undertones that seemed to shift in the artificial light. Long flowing hair the color of starlight cascaded around her shoulders. She wore simple clothing that looked hand-woven, nothing like the standard-issue uniforms of the research station. Marcus approached cautiously, his scientific mind racing with questions. How had she gotten here? The station was sealed, its location known only to a handful of people back on Earth. No ships had arrived in months. The proximity sensors would have alerted him to any approaching vessels. As he drew closer, he noticed a small device resting beside her, its surface covered in symbols he didn't recognize. The technology looked advanced, far beyond anything humans had developed. The implications hit him like a physical blow. First contact. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally encountered another intelligent species. The girl stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Marcus froze, unsure whether to retreat or stay. Her eyes were unlike anything he had ever seen, deep violet with flecks of silver that seemed to catch and reflect light like captured stars. When she saw him, she didn't show fear or surprise. Instead, she sat up gracefully and bowed her head in what appeared to be a gesture of respect. Marcus cleared his throat, his voice hoarse from the cryo-sleep. "I'm Dr. Marcus Vale. This is my research station. How did you get here?" She tilted her head, studying him with those remarkable eyes. When she spoke, her voice was melodic, with an accent he couldn't place. "I am Zephyra of the Valathi. The Council has sent me to honor your work among the growing things." "The Council?" Marcus sat down slowly on a nearby chair, trying to process this information. "You mean your government?" Zephyra nodded. "They have watched your careful tending of our world's flora. Your respect for living things has been noted and appreciated. I have been sent as a gift, a bridge between our peoples." The word gift made Marcus uncomfortable. He had studied enough human history to know where such arrangements typically led. "Zephyra, I appreciate the gesture, but I don't accept gifts that involve people. You're not property to be given away." Her expression showed confusion, as if the concept was foreign to her. "But this is a great honor. The Council selected, me specifically for this role. I have been trained in your customs, your language, your preferences." Marcus felt a surge of anger, not at her, but at the system that had created this situation. "What did they tell you about me? About what was expected?" "That I would serve you, learn from you, and help facilitate understanding between our species, that your needs would become my purpose." She spoke matter-of-factly, as if reciting a lesson learned by heart. "And what about your needs? Your desires? What do you want?" The question seemed to genuinely surprise her. She was quiet for a long moment, her silver-flecked eyes distant. I do not understand. My wants are not relevant to this arrangement." Marcus stood up, pacing to the window. Outside, the alien landscape stretched endlessly, beautiful and strange. He had come here to study life, to understand how it adapted and thrived in impossible conditions. Now he was faced with a different kind of adaptation, one that troubled him deeply. Zephyra, on my world, we believe that every person has the right to choose their own path. No one should have their life decided by others, no matter how well-intentioned. She rose and moved closer, her movements fluid and graceful. Your world values individual choice above community harmony? We try to balance both. But when it comes to fundamental freedoms, individual rights usually take precedence. He turned to face her. Tell me about your world. What's it like? For the first time, something like genuine emotion crossed her features. It is beautiful. Great crystal cities that sing in the wind. Gardens that span continents. Tended by those who understand the deep connections between all living things. The Velati have achieved perfect harmony with our environment. And where do you fit in that harmony? I am of the Keeper caste. We are born to serve, to facilitate, to ensure that relationships between different groups remain peaceful and productive. Her voice carried a note of pride, but also something else. Resignation, perhaps. Marcus felt his heart clench. Born to serve, not choosing to serve. Choice brings chaos. Structure brings peace. This is what we are taught from our earliest days. The conviction in her voice told him that changing her worldview wouldn't happen overnight. But something about her intrigued him. Despite her words about duty and service, he had caught glimpses of curiosity in her eyes when she looked around the station. There was more to Zephyra than her conditioning allowed her to express. Well, while you're here, you're free to be whoever you want to be. No duties, no obligations. Just be yourself. I do not know who that is, she admitted quietly. Then, maybe that's what we can figure out together. Marcus showed her around the research station, explaining his work with the native plant species. He was amazed by her knowledge. The Velati had been studying these organisms for centuries, understanding their life cycles and interconnections in ways that made his own research seem primitive by comparison. As they worked side by side in the hydroponics lab, Marcus noticed how Zephyra's entire demeanor changed when she interacted with the plants. Her formal, controlled manner gave way to something more natural, more alive. She spoke to the specimens softly, in her own language, and they seemed to respond to her presence. They recognize you, Marcus observed. All life recognizes other life, if you know how to listen, she replied, her fingers gently touching a flowering vine. Your species is learning this slowly. What do you mean? You came here not to conquer or consume, but to understand. That is rare among spacefaring peoples. Most expand through dominance. Humans expand through curiosity. Her words carried a weight that suggested she had experienced other forms of expansion. Marcus filed that information away for later consideration. As the station's day cycle moved into evening, Marcus prepared a simple meal from his stored supplies. Zephyra watched his every movement with intense interest, as if memorizing each gesture. You don't have to observe everything I do, he said gently. This isn't a test. Habit, she replied. I was taught to anticipate needs before they are expressed. That sounds exhausting. Yes. Sometimes it is. They ate in comfortable silence, watching the alien sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and violet. Marcus found himself stealing glances at his unexpected companion. There was something magnetic about her, beyond her obvious physical differences. Intelligence sparkled in her eyes, and occasional flashes of humor broke through her formal training. Marcus, she said suddenly, using his name for the first time. Why do you live alone out here? The question caught him off guard. It's complicated. I made some mistakes in my previous work. People died because of choices I made. This assignment, it's a chance to do something meaningful without putting anyone else at risk. You carry guilt? Yes. Among my people, guilt that serves no purpose is considered a waste of emotional energy. You learned from your mistakes. You changed your behavior. The guilt should be released. It's not that simple for humans. We tend to hold on to things, even when they hurt us. Perhaps that is why your species is so driven to grow and change. Pain can be a powerful teacher. Her insight surprised him. For someone supposedly trained only to serve, Zephyra possessed remarkable wisdom about the nature of sentient behavior. As the evening wore on, Marcus found himself relaxing in ways he hadn't experienced in years. Zephyra's presence, once he moved past the disturbing circumstances of her arrival, was genuinely comforting. She asked thoughtful questions about his research, offered insights from Velati knowledge, and gradually began to share small details about her own life. But underlying their growing rapport was the uncomfortable reality of her situation. She had been sent here against her will, programmed to serve someone she had never met. The more he learned about her, the more determined Marcus became to help her discover her own identity. When they finally prepared for sleep, Marcus offered her his personal quarters while he took the common area. She protested, but he insisted. "Zephyra," he said as she lingered in the doorway, "tomorrow I want you to tell me what you would do if you could choose anything. Not what you've been trained to do, not what others expect. What would make you happy?" She considered his words for a long moment. "I will think about this, but Marcus, happiness is not something I was taught to seek." "Then maybe it's time you learned." As he settled into his makeshift bed, Marcus stared up at the star-filled sky through the observation dome. First contact with an alien species should have been the moment humanity had dreamed of for centuries. Instead, it had begun with a harsh lesson about the cost of civilization, the price of peace, and the danger of systems that valued order over individual freedom. But it had also brought him Zephyra, a remarkable being whose very presence challenged everything he thought he knew about duty, choice, and the nature of happiness. Tomorrow would bring new questions, new challenges, and perhaps the beginning of something that could change both their worlds. The stars wheeled overhead, silent witnesses to the first tentative steps of an unlikely friendship that would soon become something much more significant than either of them could imagine. The bond that changed everything. The morning light of Kepler 442b filtered through the research station's dome, casting dancing patterns across the laboratory floor. Marcus found Zephyra already awake, sitting cross-legged beside the hydroponic gardens, her hands hovering just above a cluster of bioluminescent fungi. The organisms pulsed gently in response to her presence, their soft blue glow intensifying with each breath she took. "How long have you been awake?" Marcus asked, approaching with 2 cups of synthetic coffee. "I do not require as much sleep as humans," she replied, accepting the warm cup gratefully. "Among my people, meditation with growing things is considered more restorative than unconscious rest." Marcus sat beside her, watching the fungi respond to their combined presence. "You never told me you could communicate with them directly." Zephyra's luminescent skin flickered slightly. A sign Marcus had learned indicated embarrassment or uncertainty. "It is not communication as you understand it, more like shared awareness. All life forms emit energy patterns. The Velati learned long ago to harmonize with these patterns. That's incredible. Could you teach me?" Her violet eyes widened in surprise. "You would want to learn from me, but I am here to serve your needs, not to instruct." "Zephyra, we talked about this yesterday. You're not here to serve anyone. You're here as a person, with knowledge and abilities that could benefit both our species." Marcus set down his cup and turned to face her fully. "Speaking of which, did you think about what I asked? About what would make you happy?" She was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the pulsing fungi. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I have never been asked to consider my own desires. It feels dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "If I allow myself to want things, what happens when those wants conflict with my duties? What happens when I am called back to serve the council?" The pain in her voice made Marcus's chest tighten. "What if you didn't have to go back? What if you could choose to stay here or go anywhere else you wanted?" "That is not possible. I am bound by sacred oaths, by the very structure of Velati society. Individual desires cannot supersede collective harmony. Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing, to the window that overlooked the alien landscape. Collective harmony built on individual suffering isn't harmony at all. It's oppression with better marketing. You do not understand our ways. Then help me understand. Tell me about these sacred oaths. Tell me about the structure that made you believe your life belongs to others. Zephyra rose gracefully, moving, to stand beside him at the window. Her reflection in the reinforced glass seemed to shimmer, as if she existed partially in another dimension. The Velothi achieved perfect environmental balance 3 millennia ago. No war, no hunger, no waste. But this required absolute dedication to assigned roles. Keepers like myself ensure smooth relationships between castes, between worlds, between species. And if someone refuses their assigned role, it does not happen. We are conditioned from birth to find fulfillment in service. The way she said conditioned made Marcus's blood run cold. What kind of conditioning? Zephyra touched her throat, where a faint silver pattern was visible beneath her translucent skin. Neural pathways are adjusted to suppress individual ambition and enhance empathetic response to authority. It is painless and ensures societal stability. Marcus felt sick. They altered your brain? They optimized it. Removed the chaos of selfish desire that plagues most species. Zephyra, desire isn't chaos. It's what makes life worth living. It's what drives growth, discovery, love. Love? The word seemed foreign on her lips. The connection between beings who choose to care for each other, not because they're programmed to, not because duty demands it, but because they want to. She turned to study his face with those remarkable eyes. Is that what you feel for your work here? Love? In a way, yes. I love learning about how life adapts and thrives. I love the challenge of understanding complex systems. I love the peace I've found in this isolation. And, do you love anything else? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with implications Marcus wasn't sure either of them was ready to explore. Before he could answer, a sharp chime echoed through the station. The communication array was receiving an incoming transmission. Marcus moved quickly to the control console, Zephyra following close behind. The holographic display activated, showing a ship's signature approaching from deep space. The vessel was unlike anything in human databases, its flowing organic curves suggesting Velothi design. They've come for me, Zephyra said, her voice flat and emotionless. How long until they arrive? 6 of your hours based on their approach vector. Marcus turned to face her, seeing resignation settling over her features like a shroud. What will happen when they get here? I will be evaluated to ensure I have fulfilled my purpose. If my conditioning remains intact, I will be reassigned. If not, she didn't finish the sentence. If not, what? Reconditioning. The parts of my mind that have been corrupted by individual thought will be removed. The casual way she described mental violation made Marcus's hands clench into fists. That's not going to happen. You cannot stop it. The Velothi delegation will have authority to reclaim their property. You're not property. The words exploded out of him with more force than he intended. You're a person with thoughts, feelings, and rights, and I'll be damned if I let them erase who you've become. Zephyra stared at him in amazement. You would risk conflict with an advanced species for someone you barely know? I would risk conflict with anyone who tries to hurt someone under my protection. Something shifted in her expression, a crack appearing in the conditioned facade she wore. Protection, not ownership. Never ownership. Protection offered freely, with no strings attached. For the first time since he'd known her, Zephyra smiled. It was hesitant, uncertain but genuine. I think I understand now what you meant about love. It is choosing to care when you have no obligation to do so. Exactly. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus activated every defensive system the research station possessed, though he knew they would be inadequate against advanced Velothi technology. More importantly, he used his knowledge of the planet's ecosystem to their advantage. The bioluminescent fungi you were communing with this morning. Marcus said as they worked together to modify the station's energy signature. Could you use them to mask our location? Zephyra nodded, her eyes bright with understanding. They respond to directed bioelectric fields. If I can synchronize with the planetary network of fungal organisms, I might be able to create interference patterns that would confuse their sensors. Do it. As Zephyra worked, her conditioning seemed to fall away piece by piece. She moved with purpose and confidence, making decisions without seeking approval, using her abilities not in service to others but in service to her own choices. Marcus watched in amazement as she transformed before his eyes. There, she said finally, her skin glowing faintly from the effort. The entire continent's fungal network is now generating harmonic static. Their ship will have difficulty pinpointing our exact location. How long will it last? Several hours, perhaps longer if I maintain the connection. The Velothi ship arrived precisely when predicted, its graceful form settling into orbit above the planet. Marcus watched through the station's telescopes as smaller craft deployed, beginning systematic searches of the surface. Dr. Marcus Vale. A voice spoke from the communication array, its tone melodious but carrying unmistakable authority. I am Counselor Thane of the Velothi delegation. We have come to retrieve our cultural ambassador. Please prepare her for immediate transport. Marcus activated the reply channel. Counselor Thane, I'm afraid that won't be possible. Your ambassador has chosen to remain here of her own free will. A pause. When Thane spoke again, his voice carried dangerous undertones. The individual you refer to is incapable of making such choices. She exists to serve designated purposes. Her continued presence on your world serves no function. Her purpose is whatever she chooses it to be. Dr. Vale, you clearly do not understand the situation. We will retrieve our property, with or without your cooperation. Then you'll have to take her by force, and I guarantee you that won't be as easy as you think. Marcus closed the channel and turned to Zephyra, who had been listening with growing agitation. Are you sure about this? Once we resist them openly, there's no going back. She stood up straight, her silver-streaked hair catching the light like captured starfire. For the first time in my existence, I'm making a choice that comes from within me, not from conditioning or duty. I choose to stay. I choose to learn who I am beyond what others made me to be. And I choose to trust the human who showed me that choice was possible. As if summoned by her words, the station's proximity alarms began blaring. 3 Velothi search craft had found them despite the fungal interference. Marcus watched through the viewports as the elegant vessels approached, their hulls gleaming, with power that could reduce the research station to atoms. They're jamming our communications, Marcus reported, checking his instruments. And they're charging some kind of beam weapon. Zephyra closed her eyes, her hands pressed against the station's walls. The fungi are responding to the energy buildup. They're angry. The Velothi weapons disturb the planetary harmony they work so hard to maintain. Can you use that? Perhaps. Her eyes snapped open, glowing with inner light. The entire ecosystem is connected. Every plant, every microorganism, every symbiotic relationship spanning continents. If I can convince them that the Velothi ships represent a threat to the global balance. She didn't need to finish. Marcus could see the plan forming in her luminous gaze. Do it. Zephyra knelt on the floor, pressing her palms flat against the metal surface. Her skin began to glow brighter, patterns of light racing along her arms and across her face. Through the viewports, Marcus could see similar patterns appearing across the landscape as far as the eye could see. The planet itself was awakening. Massive root systems that had lain dormant for centuries began to move. Bioluminescent displays that normally occurred only during mating seasons erupted across entire continents. The very air began to shimmer with released spores and pollen, creating aurora-like effects in the atmosphere. The Velothi ships found themselves surrounded by a living storm. Vines erupted from the ground, reaching toward the hovering craft with obvious hostile intent. Clouds of glowing particles interfered with their sensors and guidance systems. The planet that had seemed so peaceful and welcoming was revealing its true power. Impossible, came Counselor Thane's voice over the restored communications. No Velothi could command such a response from an alien ecosystem. Maybe that's because she's not just Velothi anymore, Marcus replied. She's something new, something your conditioning couldn't account for. Through their connection to the planetary network, Zephyra spoke directly to the orbiting ships, her voice carried by bioelectric currents through every living thing on the planet's surface. I am Zephyra of the Kepler Gardens. I claim sanctuary under the ancient laws of all growing things. This world accepts me as its daughter. Depart in peace or face the consequences of harming that which it protects. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus held his breath, waiting for the Velothi response. When it came, it wasn't what he expected. The Council will not forget this defiance. Thane's voice was cold with fury. But we will not risk damaging relations with a planetary consciousness. You have chosen exile, Zephyra of the Kepler Gardens. You are no longer Velothi. Your genetic line is severed, your name stricken from our records. I accept these terms, she replied without hesitation. The Velothi ships departed as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving behind only the fading echoes of their passage. Slowly, the planetary response began to subside, though Marcus could still see faint patterns of light flickering across the landscape. Zephyra collapsed, exhausted by the enormous effort. Marcus caught her before she could hit the floor, supporting her weight as she struggled to recover. Are you all right? He asked, concern evident in his voice. I am more than all right, she whispered, looking up at him with eyes that now held no trace of artificial conditioning. I am free, I am myself, and I am home. As they stood there together, surrounded by the gentle glow of alien sunlight and the quiet hum of the research station, Marcus realized that first contact hadn't happened the way humanity had always imagined. It hadn't come through grand diplomatic missions or dramatic space battles. It had come through two individuals choosing to see each other as people rather than symbols, choosing connection over duty, love over conditioning. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Zephyra smiled, and this time there was nothing hesitant or uncertain about it. Now we discover who I am when I'm free to choose. And perhaps we discover what we can become together, outside the planet. Sang with new harmonies, celebrating the birth of something unprecedented. A being who was neither fully human nor fully Velothi, but something entirely new. Something that represented hope for a future where choice mattered more than programming, where love could overcome even the most sophisticated forms of control. The stars wheeled overhead, silent witnesses to a transformation that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Humanity had made its mark on the cosmos not through conquest or dominance, but through the simple revolutionary act of recognizing that every sentient being deserved the right to choose their own destiny. And in that recognition, both species had found something more valuable than peace or harmony or order. They had found the possibility of growth, of change, of becoming something greater than the sum of their individual parts. The future stretched out before them, uncertain but filled with promise. Together they would explore its possibilities, one choice at a time.